Yeah, but everybody in the room is muted. There's nothing going out to here.
Okay, I am unmuted. My name is Betsy Moss. Good evening, everybody. We're going to open this public.
No.
I show myself as being unmuted.
You're good. Yeah. Why is it-
We're going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. It's September 17th. It should be, it's 7:32. Sorry, there's always a technical glitch. But tonight, I'd like to welcome everybody for coming. We are going to have a public hearing about the building, some of the changes in the town code with regard to building permits and fees for building permits. The goal of this public hearing is so that if anybody had signed up to speak, they could share their opinions. So about it. Now, the resolution was passed last month and there was a material attached that would show everybody what the code will look like after this public hearing and if we move forward with this. But basically there are two issues. One is taking the fee structure out of the code and having it approved by the town board annually, and also changing the extension period on after your first year is up, going into the second year of a building permit and limiting that. But I'm not going to put you on. So I'm wondering, town clerk, our building inspector, George Kolb, is here, and I thought maybe an explanation from him would be interesting, but I think if everybody's read the material, they know that basically the building permit is good for a year. And then one must apply for the next 12 months building permit. And we never had an end date on that. So we've had some experiences with people with building permits going on for years. And so the new code change would permit somebody to get it extended once for 12 months. And then from the expiration date. And in addition to that, on written application to the code enforcement officer and referral to the town board, it may, on a showing of demonstrated hardship and payment of the application fee, authorize a further renewal or extension of a building permit for such term as may specify. So if somebody has gotten close to that second year with the first year and the extension, and they've suffered some hardship or something is going on, then they can actually appeal to the town board for some relief. And so that's what is going to be put into the new code. Now I'm wondering, Clerk Casey, did anybody sign up to speak?
No one mentioned that they wanted to talk for this public hearing.
Did you say that again? I'm sorry.
Oh, I said there was no emails about speaking at tonight's public hearing for the building code.
Okay, so nobody wanted to ask questions about the building code. So it seems like if there aren't any comments about the building permit extension, the fees, or anything like that, then we're going to close the public hearing. Yep, we can close the public hearing and we will move on to our regularly scheduled meeting. Okay. All right. So time is it now? 7:35. That was good. We appreciate your attending.
Thank God you're here, George.
My input?
Your input was terrific, and we will give your report for you in the departmental reports. You may take your leave. All right.
Sign out now?
No, yes, you can turn it off.
That's it.
Okay, at this point, we are ready to start our regular agenda meeting, and I'd like to call the meeting to order with a salute to the flag, if everybody would join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terrific. Thank you very much. Okay, we are going to defer the approval of the minutes from the August 20th meeting until October 15th, our regular scheduled meeting. We have a special presentation tonight, and I'm going to we're very excited about this, but I'm going to let Pat Cartolemi, who is the chair of our planning board and an ex officio member of the CAC, introduce our speaker. Pat?
Good evening. So tonight we're going to have Nate Nardi Cyrus. He is a member of from the DEC, who's going to present to us the NRI that the CAC has been working on, the National Resources Inventory. It's a collection of maps and narratives that'll be presented in front of the town board and to the residents that will show the resources in the town of Unionvale. So it's a very detailed description of what's going on in the town and how to protect our natural resources. And I think everybody will enjoy these maps. They're amazing. So we're going to introduce Nate and he's going to give a presentation.
All right, great. Thanks, Pat, so much. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, can I be enabled to share a screen? Having difficulty there. Andrea, are you able to permit me to do that? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
Yep, we're ready to go. Can everyone see the screen? I'm going to go with yes, so that's great. So yeah, as Pat said, you know, this is a natural resources inventory project for the town of Unionvale. And my name is Nate Nardi Cyrus. I'm a conservation and land use specialist at the DEC Hudson River Estuary Program in partnership with Cornell University. And I'll just get into it. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the estuary program, we're a uniquely non-regulatory program of the DEC. So we don't have anything to do with the permits or the management of deer or fish or anything like that. We work throughout the 10 counties bordering the Hudson River estuary, so the tidal portion of the Hudson River, to achieve multiple benefits. But in particular, the program, or the team rather, that I work for works with municipalities to provide education and technical assistance for communities like yourself to protect natural resources. And so we've been providing quite a bit of assistance to the town of Unionvale. And this project is pretty special because we are actually also working with the town of Beekman to the south, kind of in tandem, and you know, as a good example of an intermunicipal type project. So here you can see the leadership from the town of Unionvale. We have Aki Bush, who's the chair of the CAC, Pat, obviously, who is the planning board chair, and Betsy has been heavily involved in making sure that this project is been successful. So I want to thank all of you for your work in making this project run so smoothly. We also have representation from the town of Beekman CAC, and there's even some of those folks here on the call today, so that's great to see that. We also have the Hudson River Estuary Program, so that would be myself, and Cornell Cooperative Extension, Dutchess County. So Sean Carroll, who's the kind of GIS environmental educator there, he actually was the one who created the maps for this project. So really wouldn't be where we are today without you know, his expertise and the maps that he's created. So for today's presentation, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what natural resources inventories are. We work on quite a few of them with our program, so we have a lot of great examples. We're going to talk about the goals of this project in specific, the project timeline. We'll take some time to look at some kind of zoomed out versions of the draft maps, and then we'll kind of wind up at the end with how we're going to use the NRI. This is just kind of how other communities have used it. And so, you know, it's really up to the town as to how they want to put this into action. So when our program advises municipalities on the conservation of natural resources, we use this basic planning approach to kind of organize our thoughts here. And so we start with, you know, when you want to do something to protect or manage natural resources, you start with an inventory, you know, the best available data, putting that together. Then you can use that information to prioritize, you know, what are the important things to address, what is the community value, and then finally end with, you know, planning and ultimately protecting and managing those resources. So as the name would suggest, the inventory part is where the natural resources inventory comes in. And so it's really important that you start all of these kind of later plans and management actions with a really solid foundation that this inventory provides. So what is a natural resources inventory exactly? As Pat said, it's really just a collection of all of the known information regarding natural resources in a town in one place. So instead of reaching for, reports or documents that may be scattered in different places, this is kind of the go-to source for folks like the planning board, but also members of the town board and citizens as well. These are just some of the examples of the types of data and information that can be conveyed in a natural resources inventory. Things like geology and soil, to agriculture, to climate conditions, habitats, and even in some cases, cultural and historic resources. And really, I think I'm going to touch on this later, but this report is simply just a collection of maps that explain all of these resources, and then a written description so that you understand what the map is actually saying. Because a lot of times you'll find a map, that's created by a consultant or for the town, and there's no explanation to it, and so it's very difficult for that to help when you don't know what any of the symbols mean. So the products that we're going to be receiving from this project, there'll be 19 natural resources inventory maps, like the one that you see on the right here. This is for wetlands. Those maps will be with and without parcels, so that'll aid the folks like those at the planning board in making kind of site level analysis at the parcel scale. And those are the parcels from Dutchess County. And then there'll also be those written narratives. So you won't just have this wetlands map, you'll also have this this narrative that's explaining, what the layers on that map mean and how they might, some of the regulatory implications of that. Our program, as I said before, does a lot of work with natural resources inventories. In 2014, we created this guidebook that was published through the DEC called Creating Natural Resources Inventory. And this is a guide specifically for communities in the Hudson River Estuary watershed. And on the right hand of the screen here, you can see this kind of yellow line. That's all of the areas that drain into the tidal portion of the Hudson River. And so you can see the communities of Unionvale and Beekman right here in Dutchess County, but we've done work throughout this area. All of these, the darker blue are the municipal projects that we've worked on, but we've also assisted with countywide natural resources inventories. And you can see that we have some of those for Rensselaer County, Greene, Dutchess, and Columbia, or I'm sorry, not Dutchess, but Columbia and Orange County. So the goals that were articulated by the CAC and the planning board for this natural resources inventory are really to cultivate the stewardship of resources. So in acting as a reference, it's the hope is that it'll lead to better kind of care of the natural resources that are described in the report. Another goal is to inform planning and design, review of new development. So that's very specifically targeted at the planning board. And then also to act as a foundation for plans and policies to protect critical environmental resources. And this is where it can help assist the town board in, in future planning, things like a comprehensive plan update. This would be really critical, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So here's the kind of the timeline of events as they've unfolded. You all might remember in February of 2020, which seems like, years ago at this point, the town board passed a resolution that, enabled the CAC to work with our program and the other partners I described to create this natural resources inventory. In the summer, we worked on getting the draft maps in, and the CAC and the rest of the project team spent a considerable amount of time going over those maps with Sean Carroll at CCE and doing many map revisions. So this isn't the first shot at them. They've had quite a bit of review already. Right now in the fall and the winter, we're going to start working on a development of a narrative that will describe those maps and start to get some town and public input on starting with the maps, but then eventually looking at the report itself that describes those maps. And then in spring 2021, we're hoping to have the finalization of those maps and the narrative. They'll go out to first the town board and a planning board, and any other boards or committees in the town will have an opportunity to weigh in. And then hopefully we'll be able to get this out to a set of external reviewers that Betsy has identified that can help weigh in even further before finalization. And I can't not talk about COVID-19 in this situation because it affected this project like everything else, kind of between the creation of the maps and the town board resolution. So this is a kind of a typical meeting that when we work with a community, we'll get everyone together at the library. There'll be these beautiful draft maps that we'll lay out on the table, and folks will come and point at them and find their house and talk about it. And that's usually a great part of the process, and there's a lot of fun and really engages folks. So we had to do what we could with Zoom. So our meetings looked a little bit more like this. We were able to kind of compare the Beekman maps that you see on the right with the Unionvale maps. The data was slightly different based on different data sources available for the different communities, but it actually ended up working pretty well, and I think it allowed for some real robust participation because people could actually access these meetings pretty easily remotely. Okay, so I'm going to take this opportunity to preview some of the maps. I'll be sharing a link to these maps. I think Betsy has already shared some links with the town board that's available on the Google Drive that we've set up for this project. But I can help work with folks to get them versions of this to look at in greater detail. These are the types of maps that, it really is helpful to have the PDF open and to zoom in because you can see quite a bit more detail than how I'll be showing it to you now. So you can really divide these 19 maps into 4 basic categories: physical setting, water resources, habitats and wildlife, and land use. And we'll go over each of those sections, and I'll pull out a couple maps in each to kind of show you the flavor of this of these products. And these maps are still in draft form, but this is considered to be the final draft. And so really at this point, we're going to try to collect as much feedback on this final draft as possible before we move it from draft form into its final form. Okay, so physical setting, this includes things that are, topography, steep slopes, and geology. It's really kind of the things that underpin a lot of the other resources that you can find in the town. Really beautiful photographs of the town available on Zillow and real estate sites. As I'm sure we've become a popular area here in the post-pandemic world. So here, this is an example on the left of the steep slopes map. So this is looking at percent slopes throughout the town. So this can be really helpful for the planning board, specifically to be able to, identify on a parcel level the likelihood of excessively steep slopes to help guide some of their application review. But this can also be really helpful in looking at, areas for protection, as steep slopes are generally pretty sensitive to any kind of environmental disturbance. And then we also have some of the geology. This is surficial geology, and it's really just looking at kind of the post-glacial landscape, and can be helpful in identifying where aquifers might be, because that's where a lot of that is stored in the landscape. The next section is water resources, and this has quite a bit more to it. Aquifers, we go into streams and kind of the regulation and classification of those streams. Floodplains and riparian areas, so that's getting at flood risk. And then we also have kind of just more specific stream habitats and wetland habitats. And here I've chosen to highlight the floodplains map and the aquifers map. On the left, the floodplains, this is primarily looking at FEMA floodplains. And so that has some regulatory context to it. Both the 100 and 500-year flood events are mapped on this, and mostly in this case, Fishkill Creek has a lot of those. But then you'll see some lighter colors, this lighter color green kind of that feeds into some of the larger streams. And this is actually a data layer that was created by our program that looks at a lot of other streams. FEMA only covers kind of the largest streams on the landscape and provides data for that. This was created modeled on the 50-year storm. So it's looking at a much smaller storm event, much more regularly occurring event, and looking at many more streams. And so, these what we call riparian areas, they're very important, to preserving the water quality and the stream habitat. But also it can be very predictive of where there's local flooding outside of some of those FEMA floodplain areas. And so that can be helpful in that way. On the right, we have this aquifer mapping that was done by Dutchess County. Actually, Beekman to the south has adopted an aquifer overlay district that into their zoning code that actually uses this exact data set. So just an example of how other communities have used this exact same data to help inform their policy. So that can be a helpful resource there. Here in Habitats and Wildlife, we have kind of the landscape context that's helping to see kind of resources that extend beyond the community. So particularly in the case of Union Vale, large forests that kind of extend toward Pauling, and then also in the direction of Beekman. We'll look at that quickly. Land cover, that's really just kind of satellite generalization of the types of, whether it's agriculture or forested landscape. We have important biodiversity areas and large forests, and I'll look at those in greater detail here. So on the left, we have these large forests, and this is actually a really interesting map layer. So our program created this, and basically we took and we cut all forests in the entire Hudson Valley. We separated them all by roads, right? Because roads can generally break up the landscape. They don't allow animals to move back and forth very easily between two different forest patches. And there's a lot of impact to the forested resource by roads and edges of fields and that sort of thing. So we broke all of these forests into discrete patches. And then we basically put together all the known information that we have at the regional scale, and we overlaid it on top of each other so that we could find, which of these forest patches had the most amount of kind of valuable resources. And that could include, rare species. It could include important drinking water. It could include connectedness in the landscape. So which forests are likely to have, wildlife corridors that deer and other rare animals can move back and forth between. So we put all that information together and we ranked it against itself in the Hudson Valley so that we could see, what are the most important forests in the Hudson Valley. And in Union Vale, we have some that are in the top 10% here, and that would really come out to be Clove Mountain and East Mountain. Those, as you probably already know, are very important resources, but, at an entire Hudson Valley scale, these are some of the most important and, rare and exceptional forests in the entire Hudson Valley. So it's really interesting information. Also on the right hand side, you can see here, this is important biodiversity areas. These are some more interesting data sets. You might be familiar with the environmental resource mapper that DEC puts out, and that's used for primarily regulatory purposes to understand where there might be a rare species that needs to be accounted for in the permitting process. These layers are a little bit more dynamic and interesting. They take a known rare species occurrence. So you might have, let's say, a timber rattlesnake up on the mountain here, and you can actually they use a model that knows what kind of habitat it needs. So we know that this rattlesnake needs forested landscape to survive. And so instead of just drawing a circle around that point, they just look at where there is forest and where, how far the snake can go. So it doesn't say that this is a snake area, but if it was, that would be describing, exactly where it needs to go. It wouldn't be going into people's houses. or areas that it probably wouldn't go. It's a little bit more accurate. And again, some of these things can be pretty confusing, but the narrative description should help to kind of explain a lot of these a little bit better than maybe I am right now. Okay, and so the last kind of category of maps are agricultural resources and conservation lands that go along with just basic land use. And here we have those maps. Conserved lands, you can see Timor Park features prominently on this map, as well as the other town park in Verbank. And then we have some of the Dutchess County or Dutchess Land Conservancy conservation easement properties on this as well. So that information is here on this map. For your own information, Timor Park is actually on all of the maps. There's kind of an outline of it, and you can kind of see it on this agricultural map. That's because it's such an important resource for the town to manage. This should make it a little easier for any kind of analysis that people want to do in looking at what resources are in the park itself. And here, this is on the right, the agricultural resources map. These kind of green, brown, and light green colors has to do with all the prime or important agricultural soils. So it gives you an idea of, where, important farmland is on the landscape. And then we have some hashing. That's looking at properties that are requesting an agricultural exemption through Dutchess County. So it can tell you, where there is active farmland as a proxy by that, and if there's important agricultural soils underlaying that farmland. Okay, so that's not all the maps, but it's some of them. And I welcome everyone to look into them at their own leisure in greater detail. It's always great to find your neighborhood or your house and see what's there using those maps. I think it can be really helpful for coming up with questions. But I'm going to end with just talking about how some other communities have used natural resources inventories to just assist in their own town functions. So here we have the town of Cornwall, which is in Orange County. They completed a natural resources inventory in 2019, but they were also concurrently working on a comprehensive plan and future zoning updates. And NRIs are really great for kind of, if you're preparing to do one of these processes, it can really set you up in a good way. And in the case of the town of Cornwall, they had this great map set that was created for them. And they were able to give that to the consultant that created their comprehensive plan and actually realize some bit of a savings. In fact, another project we worked on in the northern part of the estuary estimated that they saved around $10,000 by not having to have their consultant recreate a series of maps. So there's some practical savings that can come with this because a lot of this information would naturally be recreated with the comprehensive plan. And if they know that they can just take this plan and add it as an appendix and refer to it, it's much easier for them. Another example is the creation of an open space plan or an open space inventory. These are similar. Open space plans really are kind of broad planning tools that look at, how a community might go about protecting land and, some of the broad priorities. Usually it's just kind of big blobs on a map. It doesn't get at the parcel level. An open space inventory, in contrast, actually looks at all the parcels in a community and it ranks those parcels so that, you can actually see which parcels are the most important for conservation if a town wants to get into that kind of granular layer. So you can see on the right, this is the city of Kingston. They created a natural resources inventory, and you can see kind of all these little layers. This represents different maps, and they laid them all on top of each other. And lo and behold, you can see kind of these dark red areas. That's where a lot of the resources were overlapping. And so if you conserve one property here, you're conserving a lot of different resources. So here you can see that translated to this really beautiful open space vision map. And you can see reflected, this area is here, this area is up in the northern part, and then the southern part of the town is here. And it really helped kind of focus where they wanted to protect land. In some cases, it was farmland. In some cases, it was, river or kayak access. but that NRI was the underpinning of that entire process for that community. Next is checklists. This is a tool that's often used by planning boards and other boards to kind of organize project review. And so we have examples of, this is in the town of Gardner. They're working on an NRI right now, but they want to integrate their checklist so that, when they give kind of the packet to an applicant of what they're looking for, they can give them the NRI and say, this is what we want, and they can do that review so that the applicant's not kind of searching for information from a bunch of different places. They know exactly what the town's going to be expecting, and they can come into that application or pre-application meeting prepared. And then this is another example from our guidebook for the town of Rhinebeck. I know it's really tiny, but if anyone's interested, I can provide copies of that. So this can be done by planning boards, but it can also be done by other committees like the Conservation Advisory Council to just kind of simplify and streamline project review. Next is stewardship. So just the, understanding a parcel so you can know how to manage it. And in this case, I want to kind of just walk through Timor Park because we have it reflected on all the maps. You can see this kind of broken outline of it here. And this is that land use map. So you can see these kind of open meadow areas. That's what it's showing here. And then, there's some forest on the western side of those meadows, and then some coniferous forest, it looks like, in the kind of southeastern part of the park by the pond here. So you can get kind of a rough idea. You being there at this point, you know it a lot better than I do, but it's a starting point. And then here we have that forest map. So you can see that there's 3 distinct forested areas in the park, and that the most kind of highest priority as far as a regional approach goes is that northern piece, because it's close to that Clove Mountain forest area, so it's naturally a little bit more significant ecologically. So you can see that here. So maybe if they were going to do some kind of deer management program or something to help allow for the regeneration of trees. Often deer can, eat all of the young growing trees. And so let's say they wanted to have a deer management program. This could be a good opportunity to understand where it might be the most effective. Here we have, this is from the streams map. We have some dam information here. And then we also have, some of the streams and some of these kind of riparian flood areas feeding into those streams. So this could help in directing a tree planting project or a culvert management project because it identifies where those crossings might be. And then this is the steep slope map. So understanding where maybe some of the more sensitive environmental areas for siting trails or maintaining trails, this could be something that helps that. All right, so that's all I had. I want to, again, Betsy had access to the Google Drive. I'm not sure if that worked, but this is the link that I had shared with her. And we can share that again at the end. And then, all comments can be sent, they can be sent to Betsy maybe, but I know Aki would be happy to receive those comments and relay them on to our team so that we can incorporate them into the product. And that's all I had. So I'd be happy to take some questions. Again, I can talk about the experiences of other communities or more specifically about this project. And thanks for your time.
Nice job, Nate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
That was really great. Does anybody in the room, any board member have any questions?
No, very interesting.
Shows a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, Pat, did they have 1 or 2 interesting questions at the planning board when I watched that? Did you, anything that you feel would be interesting to share?
Just some of the questions were about how the maps are going to be used. I think Nate went through some of the explanations about that. And what were the other questions? I think just a lot of positive input. A lot of people enjoyed the whole process and love the maps.
Yep, that's what everybody's been saying, Nate. It's been a great project. Now,
Yeah.
We do have 6 people on a list, including one of our residents, Brian Skorlik, who is the head of soil and water, for the county. He's one of the 6 that we are going to send the maps out to and ask them to take a look and make comments. We have a forestry manager on there and a group of other, DLC already made some wonderful comments that Aki was really pleased with. So we'll get those out to those other experts when, I guess we can use the access now and have them start looking at them and start recruiting some comments back. We'll get them to you, okay?
Yeah, that would be great. We're working with Sean Carroll at Dutchess County CCE until basically through October and possibly early November. So getting those comments back, because he's going to be the one who's going to be kind of making those changes and tweaks. So in the next couple of months would be best.
Great, okay. We will definitely do that. And since there aren't any other questions from the town board members, are probably waiting to see the finals too, and in person. But we thank you very much. And we will see you, I guess, in the spring.
Yep, I will be. I'll be back and around in the spring, and hopefully we'll have some more draft products by then, and we'll give you another report when we get to another milestone.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you very much for the time tonight. We really appreciate it.
All right, yeah, it's been a great project. Everyone's been fantastic, and I'm looking forward to seeing the final one.
Yep, we are too. Thanks, Nate. Have a good night. Don't feel
All right.
like you have to stay, just so you know.
Oh, no worries. All right, thank you.
We'll
Bye.
see you. Bye now. Let me just go back into Zoom. Okay. So Pat, thank you for introducing him and for being here. Those maps are going to be sent to those 6 different experts for comments, and then we'll get some more input in there. And I know Aki wanted to bring them back and present them in the spring. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and move on with the rest of the meeting. You're welcome to stay or not. It's up to you. You don't have to, but thank you very much for being here.
My computer died on my phone.
Oh, well.
It's good indication.
Somebody's telling you to go home. Thanks for being here again. This point of the meeting, it's the town supervisor's report, and I'm going to take just a minute to talk about the town financials and the 2021 budget. We're at 92% as far as cash flow. I know we were over $20,000 less than the amount of cash that we brought in last August. And we're at 86% of our expenses. So we're underspending, which is a very good thing. Now, when we have a budget schedule that we went through last time in the last meeting, and it's important for those of you who are interested in the town board work session. The first Thursday in October will be when we start. It's going to be a budget work session, and we start reviewing it. And the one thing I will say is that we've worked really hard for the last couple of years to build up a fund balance by cutting expenses, and all the employees really tried hard not to spend on things that weren't really a high priority. And we've done, I think the whole group has done a fabulous job. And we talked about this at the end of last year. But at the end of 2019, we had a fund balance of $2,608,000, which we had never obviously had that high a number before. Highway had a fund balance of $400,000, and that's just because there wasn't that work wasn't done that year. So we got to transfer all that money into this year, and our superintendent's got done a lot of work with that money. So that's great, that money in this year's. So we started out strong this year. We have had almost zero income. I mean, we just haven't had any revenue. And for us, revenue is, we certainly get our tax appropriation from the taxpayers, but that's only half of what we need. And the other half is through the revenue that we grow. And so my comment really is geared to making sure people know that we're perfect, we're fine as a town because we have a good fund balance. We won't be able to do some of those infrastructure projects that we've outlined, and we're going to talk about that at our work session. Mm-hmm. But because we have the team that we do, and everybody works together so well, it looks like we may end up this year. I mean, our mortgage tax is certainly the only bright light, and we all know that there are a lot of people looking at the area. But it looks like we may, by the end of the year, I'm counting the bills that are coming in. I mean, we certainly have to pay retirement bill, for the New York State retirement, we have to pay insurance, commercial insurance. Those are two very large checks at 93,000 and 65,000. But if we get the mortgage tax amount, I mean, I am looking at so far, and I'm optimistic. I'm not as optimistic about next year. So that budget discussion is going to be quite, having everybody look at a reduction in revenue.
Sure.
But it looks to me like this year, if we could, some of those bills aren't as bad as we have, or we get even a slightly bigger mortgage tax. We have saved enough money so far to cover that, the negative financial impacts of the lack of revenue. So based on the employees not spending in our expect, so we're doing great. We could be flat. We tend to like to have a little bit left over to seed the January, February, months. But we're going to be fine. That it is odd to go through a whole summer with no revenue and none of the things we have. Next year's planning will be tougher. So anybody that wants to join us on the first Thursday in October and the rest of the schedule, we'd love to have you. Now I wanted to say that we were going to have the results of our audit tonight, but I had our CPA, Ted Eglett, just deferred till October because he had a lot of technical difficulty. And as a result of that technical difficulty, he couldn't get it done in time. So I said, just wait till October. So he had something crash. We all know what that's like. So we'll have the update. Now that audit was for 2019. So, and everything, we're looking very strong. So we're pleased about that. The other thing, George Kolb just asked me to make an announcement to remind everybody that political signs are not allowed to be posted. I think he said 24 signs he's picked up around town.
Yeah, it's been a fair amount of them.
Yeah, I said there's been a lot, and he picks them up and he puts them behind town hall. But he asked me to remind everybody that they can't be posted in the town of Unionville until 10 days before the election, the in-person election. Now, I'd also like to, just for the record, make sure everybody knows that the town board has received a copy of the abstracts and the escrow report, and the building report, the monthly performance versus budget, and all the deposits that have come through in all the accounts. There was no cash this month, and the bank balances. So the normal reporting has gone out for their review. Interesting, we did a study of our Central Hudson bill. And now we had a few things on it, like, for example, like number 2 Timer Park Road, we're not paying that bill anymore.
Right.
So little things like that. But our Central Hudson bill from 2018 until now, it looks like it's gone down 12%, which is really a big increase. So I wanted to double check some things about the pool and some other. I would say, though, that every account of ours has gone down except town hall and the highway garage. And we've got to dig deeper into that to try to find out why. It hasn't gone up by much, neither of them, but they are more. But where we had huge savings was at the recycling center and some other things. When we had this review, do you remember we did that review a couple of years ago with the gentleman from Central Hudson that came in? You weren't here yet, but we went through it, and there were a few accounts that we wanted him to move that piece of equipment from there over to here, and it actually really has helped. So that discussion with them was quite helpful, and we look like we've gone down in every account except those 2, which are the most used, but we got to dig a little deeper in that one. I wanted to mention to everybody that the police reform community forums from Dutchess County is they're having these forums all around the county, and the town of Unionville, all the towns are involved, and the town of Unionville was slated to be part of that forum tonight. And basically the forum is a discussion. Every police agency in New York State must undergo reforms. Dutchess County is working with municipalities, police agencies, and stakeholders to develop ideas and reform plans that will be distributed to all police agencies in the county. So they're having these forums so that people can talk in all the towns and cities. And unfortunately, we had our town board meeting tonight. I wasn't able to attend, but George Treadwell, our head constable, was sitting in and listening. And he, I listened in because Mark Molinaro asked us to, the one from the city of Poughkeepsie, and I have to say that one was really tough. I don't think that we have the same experiences they do, so I'm sure ours would be a lot different, but they are going on. I also wanted to say that remind everybody, because we don't really have a reminder spot tonight on our agenda, that the Chamber of Commerce's 29th annual Hudson Valley Hot Air Balloon Festival is going to be in Timor Park next weekend. So everybody please sign up online at the chamber. This is their event. They're renting the park from us. But it's going to be a sight to see and a chance to take some fabulous photos of Timor with those balloons in the air. Looks like there's going to be a dozen of them. So they finalized
good.
that. Yeah. So
Just hope the weather holds out.
I hope the weather holds out. I guess they've had experiences before. Now at this point, I am going to ask the board members if they have reports to make. How about you, Councilman Welsh?
Yeah, I'd like to just remind people, the census is kind of winding down. Sorry about. I'd just like to remind the public that there's only a few more weeks left for the census process. We're doing pretty well. 10 years ago at this point, we were 65.7% were counted. This 2020 census, we're at 65.9%. So we're doing better than 10 years ago, but we could still do better. If you haven't completed the census form, please do so right away. There are people going door to door, so if you prefer not to have someone come into your door, it's very easy to do the census. You can do it by phone. Phone number is 844-330-2020. If you want to do it online, which is even easier, the website is 2020census.gov. And there's not too many questions. It's all kept confidential. And it's to everyone's benefit to be counted, because a lot of government money and other things comes to where the people are. So it's good to be counted so that when projects or grants or other things are available, us being counted helps give us a little leg up on getting results, financial results.
Thank you, John. You know, the other thing is I was looking at the self-reporting data.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right, so Unionville is at 69.7%.
Oh, okay, good.
But and Pauling is at 64, Pleasant Valley is at 69.3, so they're a little bit behind us. Beekman's at 68.8, but LaGrange is at 75.5, and I don't believe we should let LaGrange have a higher percentage than we do. I think we've got to get to 76% before the September 30th. So if you guys haven't gone online, please go online and beat LaGrange in the census report for the town of Unionville. 69.7 is better than what they had last time, so that's good. We've done
Yeah.
that. And before I go to you, Councilman Derlin, I wanted to say, since I'm looking at you, that 9/11 memorial ceremony that they had at the fire station was really lovely.
Oh, thanks.
And not only did Larry Mattiello, your speaker, do well, but your president did a great job hosting.
Oh,
And it
thanks.
was just as smooth as silk. It was a really lovely service, and something I know I go, and I think everybody enjoys going to every year. So
Yeah, thanks for all attending. Yeah,
it was really nice.
it's an important event.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Thanks.
Councilman Derlin?
I think I'll get it this time.
Councilman McGivney? Councilman Frazier?
Yeah, you stole my thunder. I was going to mention the 9/11 ceremony and thank the fire department for hosting that. It was a real nice event. Interesting comment on the census. I did respond to that last month online, and last week I got a card in the mail reminding me to respond to the census.
You know, you had already responded
Exactly,
online?
exactly. Yeah, kind of interesting.
Well, I hope we get to 76. That's all. All right, at this point, thank you, Councilman. It's time for our town highway superintendent report. And I know that Mr. Kading is, you have to unmute yourself, Ed, if you can, and then, there you go. Go ahead,
Can you hear me?
Superintendent.
Can you hear me? Are you there? Can you hear me? Oh, come on. Mute. Can you hear me? You
Yeah.
can.
Yes.
Oh. I can't hear you. Okay. So as most of you already know, we finished our major project for August, which was the screening and crushing. We have a mountain of useful material now. We did go over budget on our rentals, but we came in under on our time, so it kind of evened out. So I'm going to say it was a wash. We're within our budget, and we do have a lot of useful material. One of the other, oops, not sure who I'm looking at. Other projects coming up, we are going to shoulder some of our roads, as mentioned earlier. We are working on changing out all of the steel pipes in all of the town roads. We only have a handful left. Couple other projects, as I think the board members, I handed out the bids for the town barn, the salt shed roof. So if you review those, give me your comments. And I'd like to move forward on this as soon as possible so that we can get it done. We do have a couple of trucks that have issues. We're working on that. We're also bringing the trucks in one at a time in our free time, which is very limited, getting them ready for the snow season. Hopefully it'll be a short season this year. A couple other comments. We are still getting some sign vandalism. I have had the sheriff's department out to make a report. The signs have been repaired and replaced as needed. So hopefully the perpetrator has figured out that we're on to him and he's going to leave our signs alone. I'm working with a couple of the neighbors to the highway garage on extending our pine trees that are to the east of the highway garage and swinging a row of trees around and coming out to North Clove Road. I think that pretty much covers everything at the highway garage. We are still diligently looking for the right candidate for our replacement guy, as we are still down one guy, which puts us at 75% of my workforce. So if we're not jumping on things as quickly as the town people would like us to, please understand we are understaffed and we're working on it. That's about all I have for today.
That sounds good. And thank you very much. I hope your cold gets better and you feel better. We'll see you later. Have a good weekend.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, at this point, I'm going to go to the town clerk for a report.
Hello, our office has been busy selling sportsman licenses. I'm still having small printer errors, so if you want to call ahead of time before you come down, that would be the quickest way in order to facilitate the sale of the license. So either way, we are selling them, so please come down, but call ahead just to speed up the transaction. That's all I have for this month.
Thank you very much. Public comments on agenda items. Did you get anybody, Andrea, to sign up for that?
I just wait till everybody else is finished.
Or you want to comment on an agenda item or town issues?
Yeah, no time.
Town issues. Got it. Okay. I think that's what you said earlier, Andrea. So that's consistent. Okay. We'll wait for that. And at this point, we'll go through some committee reports. The building department, Mr. Kolb left for the evening, but he just wanted everybody to know how busy he was, and he was here in case there were questions during the public hearing. I'll comment during the new business or the old business section. And at this point, we should have, I believe, Jake Gosnell, our parks manager, is on. And Jake, can you give us an update on the park? Oh, there he is. Okay.
Yep.
Let me
Hey
see.
guys, how's everybody doing?
Hey, Jake.
Everybody can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's been a busy month, but a good month. We had, as most people will know, a project going on back at the dam where we had a pump running for about a month. We were working on that and we had that running so that way we could draw down the lake. So that way the engineers could come in and do an assessment on the dam itself and the gate valves and whatnot. And we are waiting to hear back from them. And Betsy may actually have some info on that, which is great. We finished that up last week. So I'm sure everybody who has been hiking back there and heard the noise will be very happy to know that that has been taken care of. We also had, and I know that this is in my last report, we had a really nice Boy Scout project that was done of some receptacles for fishing line, used fishing line. When people are out fishing, they get a bird's nest, they tear it out. So that way it doesn't wind up on the ground. So we put them in 6 locations around the park. They're green. They are really kind of interesting looking. He made them. It was a great project. I'm really excited to have them up. One of the projects we worked on this past month is the south end of the equestrian center fence has been leaning for a long time and it finally went. So we punched some new footings and put in some new posts up there and fixed the end of that. And then one of the big projects that we had this month was getting ready for our after school program / TGTT days. And that went all the way through in hiring someone new. So we have Allison on tonight, who's going to speak after I do about the program itself. And then my guys and I spent a lot of time prepping the building. We also worked with Sullivan Data and ran Cat 6 line all through the building. So that way we can get better Wi-Fi signal. So all the kids who are there can, log on to their Chromebooks and do their schoolwork while they're there. So it's been a busy month. And on top of that, we've had, I do want to thank Tom St. Ange, who has diligently been working on all the trails. And he was still cleaning up down trees and branches from the hurricane. And he finally got all that taken care of, which is great. So it's been a long month.
Very busy and very successful. Thank you very much, Jake.
You are very welcome.
All right, hold on. And at this point, we are pleased to announce Allison Croak, who in our recreation department is the new director of our after school and thank goodness there's time more or full day program. Allison, how are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. So just to introduce myself really quick, my name is Allison. Super excited to be involved with the TGTT program as well as the after school program. I come from a long background in recreation specifically, so I'm really excited to see how I can incorporate that into the program and see where it goes from there. So far, the program has been going really well. Like Jake touched on with the Wi-Fi, we haven't had any issues. Kids have been able to get on their laptops, get on their Chromebooks. Everyone's doing their schoolwork, completing their assignments, and we're able to do a lot of fun stuff on the breaks as well. It's great to have the whole park and facility there that the kids are able to get up and get moving in between school sessions. We've brought on a handful of girls as counselors who have been just great so far. Their summer camp staff have worked at the after school program before, so they're familiar with the program. And we're making everything work with COVID protocols. So far, no issues there. And, just excited to see where the program goes and see how it's going to evolve as the school year evolves. I think everyone's just still not really sure how the rest of the school year is going to look, but we're excited to be able to offer this as an option. There's still some space left. So if anybody is looking to sign up or knows somebody who might be interested in the program, definitely pass on the word.
That's great. But it's K through 8.
K
right?
through 8,
Right.
up to 8th grade.
Okay, well, Allison, we're so pleased to have you. Welcome aboard. And I know
Thank
that
you.
a lot of parents are happy to have that program so that both of them that can go to work and they know the kids are well cared for. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll see you again. Take care.
Take care.
Next up, we have our library services coordinator, an update from Kathy Wellman. Hi, Kathy.
Hi. Can you all hear me? Yes? Okay. I'm really happy to say that as of 4:30 today, our library service button is up and functioning on our website for Town Hall. I encourage you to go there. We ask that you do follow step 1 and ask for your access code. That is absolutely functioning. We've had a couple of requests already, and I will be back to you this weekend with your codes. As soon as you ask me for them, I'm going to get them back to you. The one group that we have up and running is Canopy, which will speak for itself if you go in and look at it. We talked about it in last meeting. It's also a site that Allison's going to be able to use with the full daycare. And I'm going to go down and spend some time with them and see what else they want. We're going to work with the parents and see what they would like and what they would like that they can use at home as well through the other services, library services that will be offered. We hope to be up and running fully with Baker and Taylor by the end of next week. Don't hold me to that, but I think we're going to be right there, if not within a very short period of time. So please keep checking in, but it's really important that you get your access code so that we can have you ready to go on everything as it opens up. But you can use Canopy, you can use the public library, and you can use the out of print e-reader service that we have listed there. But most important too is we want you to, when you hit the site, there is a special request form there. And Betsy and I talked about that both at the last meeting. We want to know, we want to hear from you. We want to know what type of books, what type of videos, what type of e-readers, what are you looking for? And we really want you to be specific in that as much as you can. Don't be afraid to send me several, but because we're going to use that as a guideline. We want to supply you with what you really want and not just material that's not going to be used. We want to use our money wisely and get exactly what you want. So we just want to encourage you. We're very excited about it. So come and visit the library service button on the homepage, and we will be communicating.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks very much. Okay, at this point, we have our old business. First up, we're going to talk about Furnace Pond Dam. I did get an engineering update today after all the work done down in the park with Jake and his team. Mark Carabetta, our lead engineer on the project, says that what they're doing right now is a hydraulic analysis, so they can they're using software and surveys and old measurements to evaluate whether the spillway can pass that 100-year storm measurement. There's a milestone. Water is not supposed to go over the sides, over near where the fence is. It's supposed to be able to pass right over the spillway. So if ours does not pass, which it may not pass, then they're going to have to, they'll make some recommendations as to what we need to do and one of them could be enlarging the spillway. So anyway, the hydraulic analysis is being done. Then the next is the stability analysis. And that's just, if they impose through measurements a big force, can the dam handle it? The third one is we're required to have a low flow outlet. And they tested those. That's what they were trying to get all the water out so they could see. There's two sets we have. We have one higher and one lower, and we're required to have one, and it's really for safety and maintenance. And they've analyzed that, and if ours don't work, they're going to have a recommendation how to take care of that. They're going to analyze the condition of the dam itself, and they're going to make recommendations about what they think the dam is, how it's structured as a whole. But I have to say, they've asked us, and maybe some of the old timers may be able to help us for this. What they're really looking for are any pictures or anything to do with the original design. Have there been any repairs done on the dam where they could look at vouchers and see what the material was they used to make the repairs? Because he said he does see some grouted areas. So he thinks that there have been anything related to the design or repair section. If you know any of the old timers here, they have any drawings or anything that can help, all of that will help their analysis. So
Well, have they checked with our town historian, Fran Wallon, see if she has anything in the archives?
Well, they were here when they were here last year. Fran gave searched and gave us a bunch of photos that were actually really helpful, because there were some from the 1990s that showed the entire pond empty. And they could we got pictures of those low flow valves.
Oh, good.
So they have those from the 90s that Fran had found for us last year. And he was just hoping now to get some things besides those pictures, anything that anybody might have about repairs and what might be there. So anyway, I think we might have that report back in another month or so.
Good.
And then we'll keep everybody posted. Next up is Unionville Solar. We have that program. They are going to be brush hogging next week. They're going to be starting to excavate and getting the site ready. They're working with George on getting their building permit in line, and George is going. They were here this week, and the contractor and George is going out to meet them tomorrow. And the good news is that we promised all of our folks that we would get anybody that local that had a company that could do work there. And they've talked to, I think, 5 or 6 companies.
Great.
So it started out really slow, but I know that this week we made a bunch of phone calls and people that weren't aware of it, they're now aware of it, and they've been in touch with the contractor. So that's very good. Disaster preparedness plan, anything you want to share with that, Steve? Councilman, excuse me.
Yeah, this is turning out to be a larger project than I anticipated. The template is a completely different format than our existing policy. So what I'm having to do is go through each time I want to fill a template, I go through the entire existing policy and pull pieces out to go to match the template. But when we're done, then we'll have something that'll be much easier to update. And
Oh, so you're actually doing some of that now?
yeah, it's going to be like a complete rewrite of the entire plan.
Or did you want to get the team?
I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm going to do that once I have a basic thing. It is, once I have a basic policy put together, then I'll bring it in and we can make amendments on it. I've made some changes along the way that I saw were obvious changes that need to be made. But then, yeah, it's going to take some time to complete it.
And there's no hurry, but we've got the team ready to go when you're ready. But
Right.
that's a good job. Thank you very much for taking that on. I apologize. On our agenda, we have the 2020 census, which has been covered by Councilman Welsh. At this point, we're into the resolutions and motions, and the topic is annexation of Unionville Timor Park parcels. And because we have a few things we have to discuss, I'm going to make a motion now that we move into the room across the hall because there are people present in this room, and we need to have an attorney-client privilege meeting. So I'd like to move that we do that now. And
All right, I'll second that.
okay, all in favor of that meeting?
Aye.
All right, let's move next door. We're going to put everybody on hold for a while, go through some important issues, and then we'll be right back. Okay, or back as soon as we can.
Okay.
Hold tight. Okay, we are out of our attorney-client session
Make a
and
motion to resume the normal order of business.
yes, I don't believe that, well, we can do that. I'm not sure what the attorney-client meeting, it's,
I think I make a motion to come out of executive session.
yeah, we weren't in an executive session though. So let's make the
right,
motion.
whatever.
I'll second it. All in favor of coming out?
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right, so next up on the agenda is we're approving budget adjustments, transfers, warrants, and pay bills. So we prepared for the town board in your packet, a list, some of which are old because of audits and things. We've been carrying a list and trying to get it ready. And a couple of these came up when Danielle was on maternity leave last year, right before she left, and then she had the baby. So we put them all on this list. But the only thing that's recent is the unemployment insurance. So we had $2,000 in the budget, and then so far we're expecting about $16,000, but so far we've gotten a bill for $61.92, and we had $2,000 in the budget. So we're recommending to transfer from the contingent account enough to cover the $41.92, the difference. So
Okay.
that'll cover our unemployment expenditures.
Mhm.
And if we're accurate about what we're guesstimating now, the rest of it could come out of there too. And we'll keep you posted as we get bills. We've already gotten other notifications, but they haven't billed us yet.
Okay.
So that's the first one. There are interfund transfers. And this one, some of these are journal entries that are accounting in nature, but the capital projects fund has to be closed out from phase 1 of that parking lot job. The grant.
Mhm.
And the summary of bank transfers is here. A lot of these are pretty straightforward things. For example, whenever the health HRA account is always handled by the general fund, and all the money's deposited to the general fund, and then it gets partitioned over to the highway fund, and then we have to show that we're transferring. We have to show that we're transferring from the highway to from the general to the highway. Also, the first one, the biggest dollar amount, is $58,410. That was a very large sum of money that came about because when we first got here, one of the things in hiring Danielle, who's a CPA, that she was charged with doing was going back and reconciling all of our books. She had to go back about 12 years, and in reconciling those books, 12 years, it basically, and cleaning the AUD up with the auditor and matching the auditor, the difference was $58,410.81. And we have to actually get this in writing and show that we've accounted for it. So it has been, the entries now agree. So there were a couple of these things that were mistakes. There was a previous payroll person that had a duplicate transfer. There are things like that. The FEMA funding between highway and general funds, that was just put in the wrong place when that FEMA funding came about before, and that was found on doing some checking. So the rest of these are old. Now I think this is covering all of our history. And then we have a couple of things between highway coming up, which we want to solidify. For example, the highway department drives over here to take, they have to use gas for that new truck, and they don't have gas there. They have to drive over here to fill it up with gas.
Yeah.
And it comes out of the parks budget instead of the highway budget.
Right,
So
they
we're
get
going to be,
transferred.
we're calculating that out now, and things like that will be transferring to get everything cleaned up during the budget process.
Yeah.
But this is the list we have that is very comprehensive, and I'd like to make a motion that we approve the transfers on the list so we can get them, all the journal entries and the accounting done properly.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, motion carries. We'll make these transfers next week in the books. I need a motion to pay all the bills.
So moved.
Great. All in favor of paying the bills?
Aye.
All right, aye. All right, we will take care of those right away. Thank you for signing the vouchers tonight, gentlemen. And that's about all the business we have. Now we have public comments on town issues. Glenn, you've waited a long time for this.
Do I need to get close to someone?
No,
Actually, he's got to be near
A computer.
I think if you talk loud, well, you're near Andrea's, so
Stand
just
over
stand,
there.
How if I see you?
how about you just stand there and talk loudly?
Hopefully you can hear. It's Glenn Morrison, Plymouth Road. Let me start by thanking a couple people that are not here. I think they've signed off. Nate, that sounds like a really interesting project for future reference, and I'm sure there's been a lot of work just get into what he presented. Let me also thank or welcome, I guess, Allison. I'm not in a position in life where I've got kids in school anymore or need daycare, but I'm sure that effort is going to be useful to others. I do have kids that are struggling with kids in school and daycare, so I think that's going to be a useful effort. I also want to thank the board. The board members know I've been critical in the past on a couple of different things. One of which is getting agendas out before the meeting. I think this is either the third or fourth meeting where the agenda arrived before the meeting occurred. I'd actually like to see it more than a day before the meeting, but thank you for listening. I'm not sure if I had anything to do with that.
No, you didn't, but thank you for the comment.
Thank you. I also like the fact that it was distributed via email now. I think from my past life on IBM, I always found that kind of messages that came to you were more effective than you need to go find something. So
You didn't used to read Unionville Mail before?
I did. But I haven't seen an agenda on Unionville Mail for a year and a half.
I think maybe, yeah, more like a few months, probably COVID.
I mean, I know you mentioned you weren't doing it during the COVID situation, but I actually went back and looked. And I had a hard time finding it. So I do think that's a good way. I appreciate you doing that. I do think it's important to get those agendas in advance as much as possible.
Thank you, Glenn. Is there another point you'd like to make tonight? You've been waiting for such a long time. It's got to be more important than that.
Well, I come to say thank you every once in a while.
That's fine.
What else is on my list here?
What
Library.
time is it?
I was
9:30.
able to catch up with Kathy today, so she answered one of my questions.
Oh, good.
Is working on another one.
Good, good.
I just thought of something after Kathy and I talked. So would it be nice if there was a list of questions and answers or frequently asked questions and answers? Would that help if we post something like that? Because this is all new to us, what we've gone through. So just a suggestion, I'll throw out and hopefully Kathy will get it from listening.
You know, it's an interesting point you make because the gentlemen that are working on the fundraising effort are putting together a list of questions and answers, more library related because they feel like that's what they're going to get a lot of. And so they actually, are working on that now. So interesting. And yeah. Kathy could, she could work on the services and the access to them after.
I'm sure she's getting, I'm sure I'm not the only person to asked questions. But if she starts getting the same questions, would that be more effective and helpful? That's all. And the last thing is I thought annexation was going to be the public part of the meeting, but it sounds like it's not. And I know from the past discussion, there's going to be a public hearing.
Well, there's a very specific process. I promise there will be a public hearing, but we'll have it at our next meeting, which will be October 1st. That's not the public hearing. But, there's a process you have to follow for everything. And part of a process, just like the building permits tonight, we had a public hearing here after we passed a resolution last month, see there are any objections. So it will definitely be part of that process.
So that's part of the legal regulatory.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was it. That was my questions, my comments, and again, thank you for getting the agenda down.
It'll never happen again. Just kidding. Okay, thank you very much for your patience. It was not bad at 9:30, but if anybody doesn't have anything else, then we will adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion?
So
Second? All in favor of adjournment? Aye. Okay, thank you everybody for being here and meeting our new people. We appreciate it.